Battlestar Galactica is one of the greatest television series ever made. Not the greatest sci-fi series, greatest of any genre. In the same breath as The Wire, The Sopranos, Breaking Bad. Full stop. And the ending nearly destroyed it. Both of those things are true. And if you loved the show, you already know exactly what I mean about the ending. And if you never watched it, by the end of this video, you'll understand why you should, and what to brace yourself for when you get there. Let's start with what Ronald D actually did. In 2003, he took a campy 1970s adventure show. Robots chasing spaceships, heroic pilots, clean moral lines, and turned it into something almost unrecognizable. Something that used the language of science fiction to ask questions that mainstream drama rarely has the courage to ask directly. What does it mean to be human? How do societies behave when facing genuine extinction? What do we owe our enemies when our enemies are also, in some sense, us? These are not small questions, and BSG asked them without flinching and without providing comfortable answers. The Cylons, the robotic antagonists of the original series, became in Moore's reboot something far more disturbing. They looked like us. They thought like us. Some of them believed they had souls. Some of them had fallen in love. Some of them didn't know they were Cylons at all. And the show refused to let you settle into a clean position about what that meant. Were they people? Were they weapons? Were they something new that existing moral frameworks couldn't adequately address? BSG didn't answer that. It sat in the discomfort. For 4 seasons, the political storyline is where the show did something almost no science fiction had attempted before. As the fleet of survivors drifted through space, 40,000 people, the last remnant of human civilization. The show watched what happened to democracy under existential pressure. It watched a president make decisions that eroded the very principles she was trying to protect. It watched a military commander who understood that survival sometimes required choices that couldn't survive scrutiny. It watched a population turn on itself, fracture along ideological lines, surrender freedoms incrementally in exchange for security that never quite arrived. None of this was allegory in a heavy-handed sense. It was just honest about what human beings actually do when they are frightened enough for long enough. And watching it now, years later, it feels more relevant than it did when it aired, not less. Then there is Gaius Baltar. Baltar is one of the great characters in television history and doesn't get nearly enough recognition for it. James Callis played him across 4 seasons as a man who was simultaneously brilliant, cowardly, self-serving, genuinely tortured, accidentally heroic, and almost impossible to categorize morally. He was responsible, through his own vanity and weakness, for the near extinction of the human race. He knew it, he could never fully face it, and the show tracked what that knowledge does to a person across years of running from it. He was not a villain, he was not a hero. He was something more uncomfortable than either, a deeply ordinary man, placed in extraordinary circumstances, and found wanting in ways that felt uncomfortably recognizable. The best television characters make you see something about human nature you hadn't quite articulated before. Baltar did that consistently for 4 seasons. And then there is the ending. I have to be honest about this. Because I think the ending is a genuine failure, not a minor misstep. A significant, costly failure that still frustrates me years later. 4 seasons of morally complex, intellectually serious storytelling. 4 seasons of refusing the easy answer, the comfortable resolution, the clean line between good and evil. 4 seasons of earning your trust as an audience. And then the finale asked you to believe that the survivors, 40,000 traumatized people who had spent years running for their lives through space, cheerfully gave up their ships, their medicine, their technology, their entire civilization, and dispersed across a primitive planet to become farmers. By choice, happily, the end. It resolved the tension by dissolving it. Rather than confronting what it would actually mean for this broken, exhausted, technologically advanced remnant of humanity to try to build something new, it simply made the problem disappear. They didn't want technology anymore. Problem solved. This was not a narrative decision. This was a production decision wearing narrative clothing. The show needed to end. The writers needed a conclusion. And rather than doing the extraordinarily difficult work of actually landing a story this complex, They reached for something that felt mythological and poetic on the surface, but didn't survive contact with the characters they had spent 4 years building. Here is what I think should have happened. The fleet arrives at Earth, not primitive Earth. A modern Earth, or close enough to modern that genuine complexity immediately follows. Do they reveal who they are? What do they tell us about the Cylons? What happens when 40,000 people with advanced technology and unimaginable trauma try to integrate with a planet of billions who have no context for any of it? Do they split into factions? Do the Cylons among them try to assimilate or remain apart? Does Baltar finally face genuine consequences in a world that can hold him accountable? That is a season of television, possibly two. And it would have been extraordinary because the characters were extraordinary, and the situations would have been genuinely new rather than a soft landing into mythology. Instead, we got people walking into fields, and the camera pulling back to reveal modern New York as if to say, yes, these primitive farmers are your ancestors. Isn't that nice? After 4 seasons of BSG, nice was the last thing anyone needed. But here is the thing I keep coming back to. Even with that ending, even with the frustration of watching a show this good fail to stick its landing, Battlestar Galactica is still extraordinary. The ending doesn't erase what came before it. 4 seasons of some of the finest writing, acting and moral seriousness that television has ever produced doesn't disappear because the finale was a disappointment. If you've never watched it, start with the mini-series that precedes season 1. Give it 2 episodes. If it hasn't grabbed you by then, which I find almost impossible to imagine, it's not for you. If you watched it, loved it, and felt betrayed by the ending, you were right to feel that. And you were also lucky to have had 4 seasons of something that good. And if you gave up on it somewhere in the middle, go back. Whatever you left behind, what's waiting for you is worth it. BSG is not a perfect series, but it is an essential one, and the television landscape is poorer for the fact that almost nothing made since has had the courage to attempt what it attempted. Next time, I want to talk about the sci-fi shows that were cancelled before they were finished, the ones that had years of story left to tell and were pulled because the streaming numbers didn't work for a quarterly earnings report. Lost in Space, Travellers, The Orville, Continuum, Manifest. The shows that deserved so much better, and why streaming economics are quietly killing ambitious long-form television. If you're tired of sci-fi content that doesn't take the genre seriously, hit like, it helps, subscribe and join the conversation. New video every week. Out there is exactly where we're going.